For those who don't know me, my name is Niels Rosenbaum. I'm a psychiatrist. I work with the Crisis Intervention Unit and the Behavioral Sciences Unit for Albuquerque. Okay, so grief is often taught and understood in these stages of grief that were pretty much invented or discovered by a woman named Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And why is it important to understand stages of grief? It just sort of gives you a roadmap of what to expect. The stages aren't hard and fast, and they mix in with each other, and you can flip-flop between the stages, but it gives you a sense of, okay, this is part of the human experience, and it gives you some grounding. And it also can help therapists and other people around them understand what's going on. Okay, so never tell someone who to love or how to grieve. That's a quote from my grandfather like a month before he died. And I think that's true. You know, how many times have you told people, like, why are you dating that guy? What's wrong with you? It doesn't do anything. It doesn't help at all. And it's the same with grieving, like, you should get out, or you should do this, or what's wrong? You know, each one's going to grieve in their own way. So the stages are just an overarching thing, but everybody is unique. Nothing that grieves us can be called little. By the eternal laws of proportion, a child's loss of a doll and a king's loss of a crown are events of the same size. I don't know if I agree with that, but it's a good quote by Mark Twain. Everyone can master a grief, but he that has it, or she. And I think that's definitely true. So we don't know what it's like until it's us. That is me in the Superman outfit back in the 70s. And that's my dad, and he has since died. And that was a huge loss, and one that I will never get over. And I'm just getting teary-eyed thinking about it, honestly, which I did not expect. And this is my turtle. These are obviously not events of equal size, and they haven't affected me equally, but my turtle was stolen, and that grieved me in a way that I wasn't expecting. Like, I think about that turtle and wonder, where is he? What went wrong? Because it's more of a complicated grief. He was stolen. So just the point of, you never know what you're going to grieve. Okay, so let's talk about those stages of grief. So this wasn't in Kubler-Ross's original ones, shock. So you tell somebody that someone died and they just go blank and shut down and can't process any information. I remember learning about this in medical school, that you will tell somebody that their loved one died and you just kind of have to wait because they're not going to hear anything after that. And then denial and shock often mix in with each other. So this is one of Kubler-Ross's first stages. So denial is, you go to the ER, you're told that your spouse has died, and you just say, this happened to one of my closest friends in the ER. She was the doctor, and she told them, you know, your husband is dead. We did everything we could. I'm sorry. And they have to be very direct, like dead. It's not like he's no longer with us or anything. And the wife just looked at her and said, oh, okay, when can I take him home? When can we leave? And she's like, oh my God. She just blocked it out completely. That's full on frontal denial, but denial can be more subtle, like, oh, everything's going to be perfect. This is going to work out. They're not going to die. They're okay. That kind of thing. They'll come back. My turtle will return. That sort of stuff. Anger is another stage, the next stage. So after you deny, you start to let it in, the fact that this is actually happening, and then you get pissed. And that you could be pissed at God. You could be pissed at yourself. You could be pissed at the hospital. And that's often one that happens. You fucking people at the hospital screwed everything up. Or you could be pissed at the cop who was involved in the case. You know, there can be one of a million things that you're angry at. Then bargaining is one of the shortest stages. And this is the classic, you know, there's no atheist in the foxhole. People say, I will go to church every Sunday if you just let my spouse live, or, you know, I'll be a better husband, et cetera, et cetera. Or, you know, I'll take my vitamins and that way I won't die. And then depression. Unfortunately, depression is one of the longer stages. So this is when you just realize it, you're not fighting against it, and it just hurts. It just feels bad. Grief is an awfully painful feeling, and a lot of the neurotransmitters and neuropathways are the same as pain. And then comes acceptance. In the original version of acceptance, so Kubler-Ross's stages that I'm talking about were from the point of view of the person dying. That's how they were developed, all these stages of grief. They've since been about other people grieving the loss of others. But acceptance was an interesting stage, because what she noticed was when someone is dying, it's not unusual during the acceptance stage to not want to see anybody, to not want to see your family, not even your closest friends and family. You just kind of want to be left alone. You've accepted that you're going to die. And that often freaks out people. And one of the good things about knowing that these are normal stages is it's helpful to know that they're not blocking you out. They've just reached an acceptance. And then it's also acceptance in the normal phase, like, okay, I understand they're gone. I've incorporated this new reality into my life and I'm moving on. Okay, coping with grief. Coping with grief. First thing, a bit of advice is acknowledge your pain. Don't try to deny it. Like my dad dies, I don't just say, oh, I got to go to work tomorrow and everything's wonderful. Some people do that. And for some people that actually can be helpful, but denying that you're in pain is not going to help. So this is a great quote. It's ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. That's a song by Leonard Cohen. So I think this is a really good one, and I didn't realize how well it pertains to grief until I read it again, because I've always liked this quote. So ring the bells that still can ring. So if someone dies, go on living. Do what you can, live your life. Ring the bells that still can ring out. Not everything is destroyed, and forget your perfect offering. Meaning, it's not going to work. It's not going to be wonderful again. It's not going to. No matter what you do, no matter what you offer, it's still going to be broken. There's nothing you can do to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Just forget about that and kind of move on with your life when you're grieving. There's a crack in everything. Everything, and that I agree with too. Everything in life is a little bit fucked up, a little bit broken. And this is a big crack when you lose somebody that dies. It's a big crack down the middle of your heart, not to be too dramatic, but it really is. But that's how the light gets in. That's how you realize that love is around you. I'm not getting too metaphysical, but with that, if everything was wonderful, there's no room for growth and gain and love and imperfection. So I think this is a great quote, and that's why I lingered on. This is the same guy who wrote the song Hallelujah. Anybody know the song Hallelujah? Heard there was a secret chord? Yeah. Okay, coping with grief. Except that grief could trigger different and unexpected emotions, often comes in waves. So that was the best advice I ever got about grief, was it's going to come in waves. And that's actually one of the things that makes it different from depression. Depression is kind of lingers and is always there, where grief, you're doing fine. I mean, you're miserable, but you're different stages of miserable. So you're either weeping openly and then 10 minutes later, you're reminiscing with your brother about being a child and you're laughing. And that's just normal. And then those sort of waves of pain and discomfort settle down, but you might be, for me, it was 2 months later or 5 months later, I can't remember, dropping off stuff at a Goodwill store. And it was something that I was dropping off that maybe my dad gave me, and it just I had to pull over and start crying. There's nothing I could do. And then I got my shit together and I went about my day. So it comes in waves. Understand that grieving is unique to you. So don't ever think like, I'm doing this wrong. What's wrong with me? Why do all those other people seem to know exactly what to do and I'm lost and confused? Being lost and confused is unfortunately a very normal part of grieving. Coping with grief. Seek out face-to-face support from people who care about you. I think I added the face-to-face on this, but it's very important to let people in as much as you can. And what I mean by that, as much as you are able and capable. So if you really can't deal with people, don't deal with people. But if you feel like, hey, you call your spouse or your son or whomever, your best friend, and say, can you just hang out with me, sit here, or watch TV? That's good. If that's all you can tolerate, that's all you can do, and that's a good start. Support yourself emotionally by taking care of yourself physically. So life is for the living, and I believe that's very true and very important. So you often lose your appetite. You don't want to do anything. You just kind of want to be left alone, but you still gotta, or you still should continue your habits of exercise, healthy eating. And if you haven't established them, do if you're able to. And that helps the process a lot better. And grief is a process, and it's an important process. And often people ask about medicines for grief, and they're not really necessary unless it starts to get long or complicated. Other tips: recognize the difference between grief and depression. So we talked about one difference. Grief comes in waves. It's directly connected to what happened. Depression, it has all the checklists. You're not eating, you're not sleeping, you're agitated, you're maybe losing weight. The big cutoff is thinking about death and suicide, feeling overly guilty and hopeless. And that it's kind of always there. Where grief is, you're just you, but you're in pain, and that pain comes in waves, and you're missing the person, the object of your grief. Except that people feel awkward when trying to comfort someone who's grieving. So if you're grieving, it's good to know that other people sorry, and they don't know how to respond, but just keep in mind that hopefully they're doing their best. Talk to a therapist or a grief counselor if you're able to. Know that the pain, especially the acute pain, won't last forever. The waves diminish with time. And know that you never know where that next reminder is going to be, and that's okay. One other thing I saw that was very good advice was ask yourself, in the weeks and months after the loss, is this helping or hurting? And it could be a breakup from a boyfriend or girlfriend. It doesn't matter what it is. It's some kind of loss, a loss of a job, even people grieve. And is this helping or hurting? So is it helpful that I'm going through these photos? Yes, it is actually helpful. It's helping me heal and remember my father. And I think this is important. And I'm doing it with my brother, and it's a bonding experience. But 3 months later, and I'm looking at it, and I'm sort of still stewing in it, and I ask myself, is this helpful or hurting? Maybe this is not helpful anymore. And then you put it aside. How lucky am I to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard? And that's Winnie the Pooh said that. And that is, what's his name? Who's the boy?
Christopher Robin.
Christopher Robin. That's his son, Christopher. And these are the actual toys that Christopher had that his father gave him, which is sort of sweet. Okay, this is the last quote. Kubler-Ross, she looks like someone who might study death all the time. So Kubler-Ross, she's the one who came up with the stages. The reality is that you will grieve forever. You will not get over the loss of a loved one. You'll learn to live with it. You will heal, and you will rebuild yourself around the loss you have suffered. You will be whole again, but you will never be the same, nor should you be the same, nor would you want to be, which I think is just a lovely quote and very, very accurate. That's it. Thank you. I will stop sharing.